Hi there. My name is Mike Redling. I'm one of the two Navionics Marine Specialists based here in Florida. I'm also the chairman of the Snook and Game Fish Foundation, which is dedicated to protecting the existing inshore marine habitats and then replenishing as much of those marine habitats that we've lost during the past 50 years. Today we're going to talk about snook and the different ways you can target them, how to treat them when you get them to the boat and shore, and if your timing is good and you're in the right slot, the best way to prepare them at home. There should be a place for some questions and answers up at the top of your screen. Feel free to type some questions in if I come across something that you have a question about. I'll try to get to it during the webinar. If I don't, I have all your email addresses and I can get to you afterwards. I'll email you the answers afterwards. So snook's always been a big part of my life. I grew up in Jupiter, which during the 80s when I was running around barefoot on the beach and doing all that stuff, Jupiter Inlet was known as kind of ground zero for big snook. I had a friend of my mother's who used to take those big, thick 1980s flip-flops, with the rubber soles that were like that. She would core out the rubber soles and actually turn them into like foam plugs and would fly fish with those off the jetty at the Jupiter Inlet and catch, 40-inch snook like nothing. It was just that kind of time back then. I remember another one of my memories from back then was I was 6 or 7 years old. My parents came in and woke me up about 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 3, to take me next door to my grandparents' house to show me the 42-inch snook that my grandfather caught off the A1A bridge. And I remember, I remember I was like 6 or 7 years old. I'm wearing these teddy bear pajamas and groggy, but I remember him holding up this gigantic fish with the line down the side and just remembering it was really cool. So now I live in Jensen Beach, which I think, I fish out of the St. Lucie Inlet, which I think if you talk to a lot of people, they'll tell you that some of the bigger fish have kind of moved up and now reside up here in Jensen Beach. So this is an example of a St. Lucie River snook. Caught this it was July. It was, just up the river, laying on a log, hanging out, waiting for some bait to swim by, and we managed to pick it off. So it was a very good day. And I don't know how many of you are on here who live in Florida, but if you do, you know that snook are pretty versatile fish. They can live in freshwater, they can live in saltwater. There's even a small resident population in Lake Okeechobee. This picture here, it's a snook that I caught it was way deep in Everglades National Park. We were an hour or an hour and a half running time up inside the park. And it was Captain Ron Houston and I catching these snook and largemouth bass on alternate casts on topwater lures. It was one of my favorite fishing days ever. And it just goes to show you, snook, we were up there basically bass fishing. We were pulling snook off the walls as well. It was amazing. But, Everglades National Park, Lake Okeechobee, spillways are huge. When the spillways are dumping all that fresh water, go out there, throw some lures. There's always snook dumping in there. Large rivers throughout South Florida are going to have snook in them. Another place to look for them is the reefs. I've got a lot of friends that dive. And, they're diving on 50 and 60-foot reefs, and they say that there are just schools of big snook. And from the pictures I've seen, these are 35, 40-pound snook that live on these reefs and these wrecks. And, I fish a lot of these reefs and wrecks a lot, especially when I know there's snook there. I've never caught a deep water snook off of one of those wrecks. I don't know why that is, but, I've seen pictures. I know they're there, but they're big. And it's just another, you're looking from Lake Okeechobee to reefs that are 6, 7, 8 miles offshore. They're snooks. They're pretty versatile fish, as we described. This is, there's apparently a pretty decent resident population on Bull Shark Barge here, just off of Stewart, out of the St. Lucie Inlet here in Stewart. Problem is there's also a pretty good resident population of bull sharks, as that top right picture shows. This is actually taken at Bull Shark Barge as it ate the bonita that we were dragging off the back. But so I haven't exactly jumped down there to check out the Bull Shark Barge snook population. But you get the idea. The snook there are a lot of different places. Basically, from Daytona Beach south, you can find snook, and especially right here in Martin County, like I said, the St. Lucie Inlet is well known as being snook central these days, especially for those big snook. Question is, how do you get them from where these dots are on the map to where you are, whether you're in a boat, whether you're on shore, fishing from a beach, whatever you're doing. And that's kind of what I'm here to talk about a little bit today. I know when I was a charter captain for a few years, and people would call, and the first question I would say is, well, what do you want to catch? The answer was almost always snook. I say, okay, the next question was, what do you want to catch them on? And the answer usually was, I don't care, which was perfect for me. That was the best answer I could have heard, because that meant it was up to me to go fish with whatever I wanted to catch snook, and that meant pilchards. We're very blessed here in Martin County to have acres of pilchards just off the beach during the summer months. 20, 30 feet of water, there's tons of pilchards, even closer to shore. And it's a matter of just throwing the cast net a few times, netting them, filling up your well, and getting to wherever you want to, wherever you really want to fish. When I'm fishing with pilchards, I'm doing it with a circle hook through their nose, and I'm free lining them back down current, just keeping them in the current enough so that they're swimming, and free lining enough so that I know when something bites, it's there. Not that you generally have that issue with a snook, when a snook bites, but it's kind of the idea. Just kind of keep them swimming in the current, move them back a little bit, let them swim a little, move them a little further back. That's one of the ways I fish. The other way that we like to go about things is fishing docks. This is a whole different deal than the first way I was talking about. If I'm fishing pilchards, I'm still freelining them through these docks. I'm going to let them go back towards those pilings. I'm going to let them go towards that light. But I'm also going to up my line and my leader. I'm going to go to a 40 or 50 pound braid for my line and maybe a 40 pound leader, still with a circle hook, still free lined. But the thought is, as soon as it bites my pilchard, it's heading right for that green boat, and probably the far side of that green boat. So I want to have enough line and enough backbone in my rod to be able to pull it out of those pilings and get it free to where I can fight it fairly. The same thing with our bridges. Our bridges have underwater platforms down here, and they will swim underneath the platforms, and I want to be able to have enough strength to get them up and out from underneath there. So that's what I'm doing when I'm fishing docks and bridges. If I'm fishing the beaches or somewhere where there's not a lot of structure, like this, for example, Everglades Net, this is the Calusa Keys. A lot of flats, some holes, not a whole lot of structure, and I'm going to go 20 pound braid, maybe 30 pound leader at the most, just because once those fish bite, there's nowhere they're going to break me off. They can run, do whatever they want, and I'm still going to have a good, fair fight, and it's going to be pretty successful for me. As far as topwater lures go, I said a lot of people wanted topwaters. Rapala Skitterwalk, one of my go-to baits. Mirror Lure Top Dog, and the Sabile Bonga Minnow. All of these lures do the perfect walk the dog motion. They're going to do that kind of V-wake. They're going to swim back and forth and do the right kind of swimming injured mullet look. They come in 1,000 different colors, so you can pick whatever color you want. That matches where you're fishing, the bait where you're fishing. But they've also got the kind of sound, the rattle. They've got everything that you want out of a topwater lure. I'm going to throw them along the edges of the fronts of docks and bring it back towards me, bring it up current towards me. And again, just kind of get that perfect little walk the dog motion. A lot of guys are going to want jerk baits. This X-Wrap, in fact, this X-Wrap right here, this color, the black and silver color, is my go-to X-Wrap. For around here, it matches a mullet almost perfectly, and mullet's one of the forage fish that the snook around here really hone in on. DOA Cal, maybe not so much the electric chicken color, although it's a cool name, but the DOA baits, the paddle tail baits like this with the jig heads swim beautifully. They've got the perfect motion underwater. They're kind of moving quickly. They got the little paddle behind them. Again, 200 different colors. in different weights. You can fish them low if you want. You can bounce them on the bottom. You can swim them back like jerk baits, however you want to do it. And then the bang lure, the lure that I grew up fishing the Loxahatchee River on. Mine was more of a white lure with a red head that we always went to, but you know, this is actually a really good color. It's a good kind of mullet looking color. But again, it's a jerk bait. We're going to want, what I look to do is fish in the 4 to 8 foot water column. Again, that's going to depend upon the depth of where you're fishing. If you're fishing 20 feet deep, you know, you're going to want to go a little deeper. But generally speaking, where I'm at and where I fished for snook in the past, it's been maybe, you know, 8 to 10 feet at the most deep. And you want to just kind of get the lure down in that 4 to 8 foot range, kind of swim it around. And I'll get back and explain why you're not going to be all the way down on the bottom in just a minute. For those of you that want to fly fish, and there may be a couple people on here that are fly fishermen, this is kind of the color. I'm not a fly fisherman. I've had a few on my boat. They're always very secretive. They got their little case and they, you know, take out their fly and they put it on and do whatever. But the guys that I know around here that tie their own flies, this is kind of the color they go with. It's always kind of white on the bottom, green on the top. I'm sure these aren't fly fishing terms. I apologize. But it's got a little bit of flash to it and those big eyes. So that's just kind of the oops. Oh, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. That's just kind of the look of what the snook flies look like, you know, places that people that I fished around here. So one of the things that people always ask me is, you know, how do you fish for snook? What are the kind of things that you look for? What do you do? And what I always tell them is, you know, it seems like everybody's fished for bass. Snook are basically like bass. They're going to be an ambush predator. They're going to want structure. They want some kind of structure to be around. They want to be able to come out from that structure. They're going to come up from behind, bite your bait. You're going to know when they bite your bait. You're going to hit it, and you're going to know it in a minute. And it's just that kind of thing. So whenever I'm looking for snook, it's kind of like I'm looking for bass. I'm looking for structure. I'm looking for, you know, snook are going to want more current than bass, but it's the same sort of idea of how they attack a bait. And this is, you know, a decent example of a snook coming up behind a bait. You know, you can kind of see it's coming up from the bottom a little bit. It's not a great illustration of that so much. But if you've ever watched a snook bite, I mean, a bait will come by and they will come from beneath and they will come up. And that's why if you've ever been out on a dock, if you've ever been fishing a bridge, you know, especially in the summer, you will hear the push, push, that distinctive kind of snook pop. And what that is the snook coming up and hitting bait on top of the water, making that kind of splooshy, poppy sound. And that's what they're doing. They're hitting bait from below. So it's something important to remember. You know, you don't want to necessarily, and of course we've all caught fish bouncing a DOA cow or a bait buster off the bottom, and that's fine. And they'll come around every now and then and pick them off. But most of the time, especially when you're fishing during heavy fishing times, they want to be able to come up under it or from behind it and hit it that way. The other thing they're going to want is current. The number one key to snook fishing is current. I mean, I don't necessarily look at the tide charts when I go out fishing. I go past the first piling, I look down, tide's going this way, so I know the tide's going out. So, you know, you go to your going out spot. Looking at this, going this way, tide's coming in, you go to your tide going in spot. It doesn't matter which way it's going. You just want it going one way or the other. If you ever come across a school of snook, especially in the summer, again, when the spawning is happening and they're all kind of grouped up, you're going to see they're all faced into the current. Whichever way the current is, they're faced that way. Slack tide comes, they're going to kind of disperse. The tide starts going the other way, they're all going to come back and they're going to be facing the other way. It's one of the most important things when it comes to snook fishing, I think, that you can look for. That and some structured docks, logs underwater, you know, rocks, you know, mangroves, whatever. The current is going to be the key because they want to find that structure, they want the current, and they want to be able to kind of to lurk around in it and wait for bait to get washed by. It's the same thing with your topwater baits. You're going to want to fish them, throw them up, bring them back with you along with the current or against the current so that they come, there's a snook sitting here looking this way. You want your bait to come this way, back up current. You want it to look like a mullet or, a bait fish struggling against the current because that's what snook are used to seeing. What they're not used to seeing is sitting there in the current and having a mullet swim right at them. It doesn't happen. A mullet will see them 200 feet away and go the other way. They do not come right over their head. This happened to me a couple of months ago fishing the troughs on the beach. We saw, I saw two snook right in the trough, right off the beach. They were small, maybe 18, 20 inches, but right off the beach. And you throw your lure because that's what you do. You throw your lure, you're going to catch it, and you're bringing it back towards the snook. And what it does is they're swimming and your lure's coming, and it spooks them. Totally that's not what they want to see. They want the bait to come over their heads so they can look up and come up and get it. They don't like it swimming at them. It's not natural. And I spooked those two fish without even really thinking about it. Spooked them. So it's just something to think about, the current and the way that snook naturally see bait approach them. It's not right at their faces. Even mullet are smarter than that. All right. So we've got our current, we've gotten our bait, we know what we're doing. We finally hooked a snook. The thing jumped all over the place. Its gills are all flared out. It's made a run. This one in particular made a run straight for that beach, which is over by the House of Refuge in Stewart. Whatever. Runs around, get it back to your boat, you get it back to the beach. It doesn't really matter where you get it because all of a sudden you just caught a snook. Now there's a couple of things you're going to want to do that are going to make your snook experience a whole lot better and more fun for everyone. You're going to want to subdue it. And you're going to want to remove the hook. It's not a snook, I admit. Snook have a lot less sharp teeth than that. But you get the idea. They're getting the hook out of the mouth. You're going to want to take a quick picture. Quick being the key word there. We'll get into that in a minute. And you're going to want to release it. This one got released into a cooler. But you're either going to release it back into the wild or you're going to release it onto a bed of ice. However you want to do it, as long as you're in the right season and it's in the right slot, whatever you want to do. I'm going to go real quick through these step-by-step just to kind of talk about the right way to go about it. Subduing it. First of all, snook don't have teeth. They're big and bad and mean. They'll ambush anything. They'll eat anything. They have no teeth. They are a 100% suction, slurp it in, swallow it predator. So when you go to subdue a snook, all you got to do is grab it by the lip, right? No problems. Remember, their lips are going to have a little bit of sandpaper. It's kind of like, I don't know, where are we at now? 3-day stubble. A lot like a largemouth bass. Just a little sandpaper there. But what you're going to remember, and this is huge, whether you're dealing with a snook, a tarpon, a bass, any kind of fish that you're going to grab by the lip, remember this. As soon as you touch its lip, like make contact with his lip, that thing is going to thrash all over the place. Just be prepared. Know that going in. Know when you go to grab it by the lip, grab it aggressively and hold on. Just like this, nice and hard. What it's going to do is thrash around for a few seconds. That's fine. 2-3 seconds isn't a big deal. But what happens is if you've got a loose grip on it and it thrashes around, it's going to throw that hook and it's going to get away. Seen it happen. Probably have had it happen to me, although I tend to block out those memories, so I'm not going to exactly admit to that just yet. But just grab it, expect the thrash. Well, after like 2 seconds, it calms right down. It's no problem. You can take the hook right out, not an issue. The other way that a lot of people go about grabbing or subduing their fish is they'll reach over the gunnel of the boat and they'll grab the fish up under the jaw. They'll like slide down their gill plate to get under the jaw and they'll grab it and lift it up, which is all well and good if you're dealing with an amberjack. If you're dealing with a snook, you don't want any part of that. Because one of the best things, other than that beautiful line down the side that snook are known for, is a razor-sharp gill plate. There's several plates on their gills that if they touch your hand, your finger, your fishing line, anything at all, is going to slice it open in a second and you're going to bleed all over it. So just, if you're going to be adventurous and really kind of grab it by the jaw, You can do that. I know a couple good doctors, but it's really a lot easier just to grab them by the lip, kind of hold them in the water while you're doing it, take the hook out. Just make sure you have them subdued to take the hook out, or to, you know, slowly pull them in the boat, however you want to do it. Of course, once you catch them and you've got them by the lip, you're going to want to take a picture. Now, what you're going to not want to do when you take your picture is that. There's a, you're also going to not want to do that, by the way. There's a kind of an upswelling, I guess, of chatter among biologists, researchers, just the last 10 or 15 years about, you know, does holding a snook like this hurt it? A lot. There's a feeling that grabbing a snook, holding it up like this, and, you know, especially a big 25, 30 pounder where you're holding it like this, body weight pulls on it, and without you realizing it, you're dislocating a couple of their vertebrae. You're dislocating their jaw. Again, without even realizing you're doing it. You're just, I mean, think about it. You're holding a 30-pound fish that's not used to being out of the, you know, buoyancy of water. Now you're holding it up in, you know, gravity, and everything's pulling down on it. So there's a feeling that when that happens, sometimes you release the fish, it swims away, no issue, and 3 or 4 days later it dies. It's called cryptic mortality. You know, I've talked to one of my good friends is Captain Mike Holliday, fishes here in Stewart, fished here for 35 years, one of the best guides around. And his point was that if these fish were dying of cryptic mortality, you'd be able to walk across the St. Lucie River on the backs of their carcasses, which is a pretty good point. There's a lot of fish caught around here. A lot of people taking pictures like that, you know, in the past. I've also talked to Ron Taylor, who was one of a legendary FWC biologist, researcher, just dealt entire career in snook, one of the foremost snook experts in the world. And his point to me was, you know, I don't know if they're dying from being held like this or not, but there's enough evidence that, you know, why would we even bother to try? Just, you know, it's so much easier to hold them like this. You know, the way that biologists are saying or advising is to hold them again by that lower lip. It's the best handle on the fish, and support their body with your other hand. This is Brett Fitzgerald. He's the executive director of the Snook and Gamefish Foundation, and he actually wrote a book about snook. And he's almost got the holding the thing down, right? We got to get all the rest of those fingers around and support it right. But he's doing all right. This is another one. I mean, perfect example of keeping those bones kind of in line, intact, supporting the whole body. It's a nice size snook, and he's holding it, you know, just the way the biologists are asking. And then there's this one out of Nicaragua. I'm not even sure how to tell you how to support this fish properly other than get your knee up underneath it, because that is a pig of a snook. It's awesome. So just an idea. I know a lot of people, you know, we go with the classic holding the snook by the lip and dangling them around, and bass are the same way, you know, that's fine. But, you know, I just wanted to let you guys know about some of the more preferred methods, I guess, for when it comes to handling bigger fish like that. And this, we talked about the release. If you're going to release them into your Yeti cooler, you're going to want to know the slot limits and regulations, because FWC takes these things very, 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 very seriously. They will stop your boat and ask you if you've caught any fish, and if you say no, and they think that's a suspicious no because you smell like fish, they're going to want to see your cooler. If you tell them yes, they're going to ask you what kind of fish, and you're going to tell them, and they're going to want to see your cooler. And if they just pull up to your boat and say, hello, can I see your cooler, they're going to want to see your cooler. If you've got fish in there, snook in there, or fish in there, any fish that are outside of the season or outside of the bag limits, they're going to drill you with a fine, a pretty hefty fine from some of the people that I've seen. And if you've got enough of them, they're going to take your boat and put you in jail. So just to let you know, this is kind of the Florida Wildlife Commission regulations on snook, their seasons, and slot limits. I'll let you read that a second while I refresh my throat. Of course, releasing to a Yeti cooler is pretty easy. Getting them back into the wild and releasing them safely is a whole other deal. It's a lot more work. You got to remember, by the time you got that fish to your boat, it has fought a really good fight. It's jumped around. It's made runs. It's done this and that. You've come up and grabbed it by the lip and pulled a hook out of its flesh and, most likely held it up for pictures properly, hopefully, for pictures. And it's been out of oxygen. It's used to breathe in water, oxygen from the water, and now it's in the air, and it's all like dazed and confused, and it has no idea what's going on. The last thing you're going to want to do is take the fish, Greg Louganis, dive it back into the water, and say goodbye to it, because it's probably not going to live very long, either on its own or with the help of black tips or bull sharks, which like to make use of easy meals. So what we tell people to do, or what we advise people to do, again, and this is a terrible picture, I apologize for that, is, again, put it back in the water politely, grab it by the lip like this. I think this is my hand, my thumb and my fingers holding its lip, and all you got to do is hold the fish so that the current is washing over its face, across the gill, or over the gill plate. If you want to, because you've seen it on TV and you kind of switch them back and forth a little bit, feel free. You do not have to, and do not do this. Go around in circles and figure eight the fish and do all this other stuff. Because what you're doing at some point during that figure eight is you're getting water back up into the gills, and if you get enough of it backwards, you can actually drown the fish. It's much easier just to hold them a couple, 15, 20 seconds. Probably the longest I've ever held one is 30 or 45 seconds. Just hold them in the water. Again, if you want to move them, fine. Just a little bit side to side. Just let the water kind of get over and let them get some oxygen flowing back in the body. Things going. What I do is I let them just actually suck my thumb. I will hold my thumb down there, and the fish will just kind of hold on. And when it's ready to go, when it's revived, it'll let go of the thumb, and either just kind of back away and then swim away nicely, or do like a quick 90-degree turn and splash you with water as it swims away quickly. Either way, there's a right way and a wrong way. I know that a lot of people just like kind of catch them, let them go and throw them, and they watch them do flips, and I'm not sure about cryptic mortality, but I'm sure 6 flips before you hit the water and 1 foot of water probably doesn't do a whole lot for you. And if there's any other predators around, you're pretty much done. So I suggest if you do this, you get a better camera than I had and try to get a better picture, because that's kind of a cool picture. So I have released fish into my Yeti cooler before. And the last time I did it was during one of the last nighttime space shuttle launches. My friend and I were out, caught 1 fish each, 2 total, brought them back home, filleted them, and then cooked them, and went out to the beach to watch the space shuttle take off. It was really cool, but it also reminds me all of a sudden that I have not kept a snook in forever, because the last time there was a space shuttle, it wasn't even the last time, it was before that. It's been a long time since it's been a nighttime space shuttle launch, so I need to get out and go fishing a little bit more often. Regardless, the first thing you're going to want to do when you bring a snook home to cook is take the skin off. When you fillet it, and then take the skin off of it as well. For the longest time, early 1900s, 1940s, 50s, people would catch snook, and any bathroom in the Keys will show you pictures of gigantic snook. They were keeping these snook and cooking them, but they were cooking them with the skin on. And apparently that tastes terrible, because they were called soap fish, as in wash your mouth out with soap, because you just said a bad word in 3rd grade fish. So they were catching them for sport and then killing them, because that's what you do. But they weren't really eating them until the 1970s or so. Somebody realized, hey, I can take the skin off, I can fry this up, and it's one of the best tasting fish around. And all of a sudden, everybody started catching snook and keeping them and eating them, to the point where regulations had to be introduced to kind of control the populations and that sort of thing. It shows you how popular they got all of a sudden, because that's how good they are to eat. I grew up eating snook, not a lot. It was a treat in my house. And going by this picture, it's apparently still a treat in my house, since we haven't had one in 6 or 7 years. But they're very good. They're white, very flaky meat, very white meat. I think the most popular way to cook them is to beer batter fry them. You know, you kind of put together this batter, you add 3/4 of a cup of beer, dip your fish in it, and then throw it in kind of a deep fryer, let it go for a little bit. Comes up nice and puffy and quite tasty, I might say. So this is probably, like I said, the most popular way that people eat snook. They fry it, beer batter it, or just batter it and fry it, however it works out. The way that we did it this way, and then with the other fish on the space shuttle night that we went out to the beach and sat in lawn chairs and may or may not had beer with our fish. I don't remember. It was late. And the other way that we did it was we blackened it. And again, this is easy. You can be super fancy and make up your own kind of blackening seasoning. Or you can do what I did. Go to your grocery store, buy a jar that says blackening seasoning on it. If you want, you can even get one that says New Orleans, so it looks really authentic, and just coat your fish with it. Get a skillet or like a pan, melt some butter in it on pretty medium-high temperature. Throw the blackened fillets in there, and they're not going to, they're fairly light. They cook pretty quickly. You get it in there, kind of flip it once or twice, get it to where it's cooked through, and the blackening will be beautiful. It's one of the best blackened, I've had redfish and some, blackened grouper and dolphin and all that other stuff. But the snook was one of the best blackened fish I've ever eaten. It was really good. It was the first time I'd ever had it like that, and it was really worth it. So it's just an idea. I don't really have a whole lot else. I was trying to make this kind of a quick overview. We talk about some ways to target the snook, the topwaterers, and the pilchards. Pilchards are the key. Fish down current. Always make sure you're fishing down current and keeping your bait kind of up above where the snook want to be, because the snook are going to come up and hit them. Again, look out for the structure. If there's a lot, up your line test, things like that. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to enter them in now. If I don't get to them now, I will email you. I've got all your emails. If you've got any questions afterwards, please feel free to email me. There's my email right there on the screen. About anything, snook, bluefish, redfish, bass, any kind of fishing or any kind of anything in Florida that you need to know about marine-wise, please feel free to let me know. I'm around whenever you need. Again, thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate you all stopping by. I will talk to you later. Have a good night.